Hello, good evening, and welcome back. I wasn't going to mention this, but seeing as it is 5 and 5 days, I think it's worth pointing out the rising crime in Liverpool, in Merseyside, particularly, given that we have seen this across the nation. So, hey, if you're into security, then get into my business as well. But as you see here, man shot by gunman on motorbike in Birkenhead. A man has been shot by a gunman on a motorbike in a breathtakingly reckless attack, police said. The reason they say it was breathtakingly reckless is because a passenger on a motorbike opened fire just after 4 p.m. GMT near a petrol station at the junction of Bulls Road East and Borough Road in Birkenhead, Merseyside. The victim suffered non-life-threatening shoulder and leg injuries. There seems to be a trait that the people firing the weapons aren't all that proficient, and they do tend to be drive-bys. So it's less mass shootings that you would make the news more so, and it's more just gang-related kind of opportunistic events that they try to be aiming for. As they mentioned, it is the 5th shooting in 5 days on Merseyside, which includes a woman who was shot in front of her daughter. But we've seen for the past few months that it's been about 120 weapon offences per month in Merseyside. And obviously, that the UK has some of the strictest gun laws in the developed world. Not that this seems to be stopping people. They do also go on to say that 90% of these shootings are gang and drug, particularly, related. So, yes, despite laws saying, you can't have guns and you can't have drugs, they seem to be having an incredibly large problem in Merseyside of both these things. So, I don't like to come with problems if I don't have the answers. So, I would say it's quite simple to say that, first off, decriminalising drugs. Unfortunately, the Lib Dems seem to be the only ones who are pushing for anything like this. They're pushing for legalising marijuana. So, let's hope for that to happen soon, in order to kind of take the sting out of the drug gangs. And obviously, it's difficult for them to find meaning because of broken homes, fatherlessness, in which case get rid of being able to marry the welfare state so that the children there will actually have fathers present. Wonderful. And then having job opportunities there for people who aren't inclined to make their own business straight away, even though I'm all for entrepreneurship as well. If there aren't jobs, then make jobs, because you know that you'll have people who are willing to work for you, so set up there. And of course, if you're in another part of the country, then set up in that part of the country where unemployment is so high and people are resorting to crime. However, of course, crime does cause poverty. Yes, I say crime causes poverty, not the other way around, because with crime happening more and more, then it's less likely that businesses are wanting to set up in that area, as they know that they will also be affected by it. A very simple concept is any shops opening up there, they know that they have to mark their prices up in order to get around the amount of shoplifting that goes unnoticed for when they lose stock. And for that to happen, then they're going to put their costs up too high so that they're not going to sell enough, in which case it makes the business impractical, because crime causes poverty. And that's one example of many. So, what else? Well, allow people to defend themselves, of course. I can understand why the government is too cautious to enable gun rights to citizens, seeing as people are already protesting the Brexit delays and it seems to be not happening. In which case, if they do indeed go ahead with allowing people to own guns, I'm sure they're aware that it will be used on them before too long. There have already been threats to MPs for not following the will of the people, which is completely understandable, and people causing damage to those offices because the MPs are not responding to the people. And these sorts of issues do arise, of course, when people don't feel as if they have meaning. That is what it all stems from, that you've got Tony Robbins' 6 core beliefs, and one of them, the feeling of importance, for want of a better word, is most relevant here. That if it seems like you can't really get ahead because whatever you do, you're nobody cares, you're discriminated against, anything like that, you feel like life's unfair and you can't catch a break, then in order to be meaningful and important to somebody else, if you just pull a gun on them, you are suddenly important. And of course, drugs are used so much because people can't contend with reality and therefore they wish to check out of it. And in order to check out of reality, you take some mind-altering substances. That can be as simple as alcohol, but if that's not enough, then of course opioids are such a big problem in America, particularly with fentanyl, particularly because that is pain medication. People are just feeling too much pain, both mentally and physically, because the mental side can make it physical as well. And so I would say, as cliched as it sounds, you can actually start to put a stop to behaviour like this if you encourage people to be physical. Yes, it sounds counterintuitive, but to have self-defense classes, martial arts, any sort of fighting you want, just a fight club, anything like that, anything that enables boys to be boys, men to be men, to actually get out that physical aggression by punching people in the face and being punched in the face, as well as learning techniques and then being a better fighter. That discipline as well that is learned through it helps tremendously. You can see that in Japan, where martial arts are practiced so frequently and their crime rate is so low. The same should be done over here. So if anybody's thinking of opening up a dojo, why not go to Merseyside? Go to a place that is most heavily affected and then try to teach those people. If you can get it into the culture and the ethos, then the crime rate is going to drop dramatically, because then they're going to feel like they don't have to hide their true selves of being more physical. They can be respected for it, and they don't have to hide anything because people are actually favourable of it and do appreciate it and like it. But back to the story. In the latest attack, Merseyside police said 2 motorbikes were later seen travelling towards Tranmere Rovers Prenton Park Stadium. Shell casings were found at a nearby Shell garage, and Chief Inspector Kevin Chatterton said, "For shots to be fired on a main road during the afternoon is breathtakingly reckless, and we're determined to find those responsible and to remove them and their weapon from the streets. There will always be other ways to inflict damage." Just using a car, if you will, or knives. Even if you force people to round off the tip. It's a stupid idea, because it is very useful for opening packages, for example, and of course in different parts of cooking. If you're trying to get the thigh bone out of a chicken thigh, for example, the tip is very useful. Things like that, or if you're just cooking an entire chicken, if you're trying to fillet it, anything like that. But that's what they're saying. So, they do mention it's done at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and there is still some light left, even in Britain, even this far north. There is still some light at 4 p.m. So it is getting ridiculous how people are so brazen now, even given the gun laws are so tight, that yes, illegal gun ownership is far worse than legal gun ownership, and the same goes for places like Chicago and Detroit. But, as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think it is such a big problem as I'm suggesting it is? Do you think that the reasons are the same, and that the solution can simply be by giving people a sense of meaning, by giving them a cathartic exercise in order to vent their frustration? Let me know. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say, especially if you participate in martial arts yourselves or have done in the past. Let me know how it's helped you out or hindered you if it hasn't helped. And until next time, have a wonderful week.